The winter on the high plains had a harshness that even the oldest ranchers respected. Every year the cold came early, but this time it arrived with a strength no one had expected. The wind was sharp, carrying snow that fell in thick, endless waves. Rancher Daniel Hayes knew he had only a short time before the whole north side of his land became impossible to reach. He wrapped a scarf around his face, pulled his coat tighter, and rode out to check the last section of fences before the storm grew worse. Daniel had lived his whole life on these plains, and he could sense danger in the air long before others could. The wind had a certain sound to it, a warning. The sky above was white and heavy, and even his horse, Buck, kept lifting his head nervously. The land was empty, quiet, and frozen. The kind of quiet that made a man listen carefully. As Daniel moved farther from the ranch house, he noticed something strange near the edge of a ridge. At first, he thought it was just snow drifting in an odd shape, but as he rode closer, he realized it was a trail, small footprints, half filled with new snow. No ranch hand had been working this far north today, and the tracks were far too small to belong to any man. They looked light, almost delicate, the marks of someone who had walked a long way in the cold. Daniel stopped his horse and knelt down to touch the prints. They were fresh. The person was not far ahead. A wave of uneasiness washed through him. No one should be walking alone in a storm like this. Whoever made these tracks needed help, and quickly. Without hesitating, Daniel followed the trail, guiding Buck carefully through the snowdrifts. The wind grew stronger, biting through his coat and stinging his face. He kept his eyes on the ground, watching the footprints zigzag up a small hill and down toward a grove of frost-covered pine trees. When he reached the trees, he saw something lying motionless near a fallen trunk. At first, it was only a shape, a small brown form partly covered in snow. Daniel jumped off his horse and hurried forward. His boots sank deep into the frost. But he kept moving until he reached the figure. It was a young Apache woman, barely conscious, wrapped in thin hides that offered little protection against the freezing air. Her skin was pale with cold, her lips turning blue. Her long dark hair was stiff with frost, and her hands were curled tight against her chest, as if she had tried to shield herself from the wind. Daniel knelt beside her and spoke gently, trying not to frighten her. "Can you hear me?" he asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open, dark, tired, and filled with pain. She struggled to speak, her voice a weak whisper. After a moment, she managed to form a few broken words. "I got frostbite. I need warm." She could barely move her fingers. Daniel carefully touched her hands and felt how cold they were. She was dangerously close to losing more than just warmth. If he didn't act fast, she could lose consciousness, completely, or worse. "You're safe now," he told her. "I'm going to help you. Stay awake if you can." He wrapped his heavy coat around her small frame, lifting her gently into his arms. She was light, far lighter than he expected, and the cold had taken nearly all her strength. Daniel carried her to his horse, placing her carefully across the saddle before mounting behind her to keep her steady. He held her close to share as much warmth as possible. The ride back to the ranch was slow and difficult. Snow hit his face like sand, and the wind tried to push them sideways. Daniel kept talking to her the whole way, telling her about the ranch, the fire waiting for them, anything that might keep her awake. Her head leaned weakly against his chest, and though she tried to respond, her words were too faint to hear. By the time Daniel reached the cabin, the storm had grown fierce. Snow piled against the door and windows, and the sound of the wind roared like thunder. He carried her inside, closing the door quickly to keep out the freezing air. The cabin was warm from the fire he had kept burning earlier, but not warm enough for someone in her condition. Daniel placed her near the hearth on a thick rug and rushed to add more wood to the fire. Flames rose higher, casting a soft orange glow across the room. He worked quickly, boiling water, preparing blankets, and gathering everything he needed to warm her safely. He knew that warming frostbitten skin too fast could be painful and dangerous, so he worked with care. She watched him through half-open eyes, her breathing shaky. When he knelt beside her again, she tried to sit up but couldn't. Daniel gently supported her back and wrapped her in thick blankets. He offered her warm water in a wooden cup, guiding it to her lips when her hands trembled too much to hold it. "My name's Daniel," he told her softly. "You're safe here. Just rest. I'll take care of everything." Her voice came slowly, like she had to drag every word forward. "Nita. My name is Nita." Daniel nodded reassuringly. "Nita, you're going to be all right." He examined her hands carefully. Her fingers were stiff and red from the frostbite. But he hoped they would recover with proper care. He dipped a cloth into warm water and pressed it gently against her skin, warming her gradually. She winced slightly, but didn't pull away. Over time, her breathing steadied. Color returned slowly to her cheeks. She told him in quiet pieces how she had become lost, how she had been traveling with her group through the valley when a sudden storm forced them to scatter. She had tried to follow a familiar trail but had been blinded by the blowing snow. She wandered for hours before her strength faded and she collapsed. Daniel listened silently, not interrupting. He could see how much effort it took for her to speak. She was brave, even in weakness. He admired her strength more with every moment he spent beside her. When she finally drifted into sleep, he didn't move far. He sat on a stool near the fire, watching her breathing rise and fall. He checked her temperature often, making sure she wasn't getting too cold again. He didn't want to risk her slipping into deeper trouble while she slept. Outside, the storm grew violent, burying the plains in snow. Daniel knew they were trapped for at least a few days. The trail leading out of the ranch would be impossible to travel until the weather calmed and the snow settled. But he didn't mind. Nita needed time to heal, time to regain strength, time to simply breathe without freezing. As the night deepened, she opened her eyes once more. She saw Daniel still sitting there, his posture alert, though his eyes looked tired. She spoke softly, her voice stronger than before. You saved me." Daniel shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. She knew that wasn't true. Many people would avoid trouble, especially in a storm. Many would fear helping someone they didn't know. But Daniel had followed her tracks without hesitation. He had chosen to help. She tried to say more, but sleep pulled her down again. Daniel stood and placed another blanket over her, making sure she was fully warm. The fire crackled softly, filling the cabin with steady light. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, everything felt safe. Daniel returned to his seat, determined to stay awake through the night. He wasn't going to leave her side. Not until he was sure she would be all right. He didn't know much about her, where she came from, who her people were, or what she had been going through, but he knew one thing clearly. She had fought hard to survive, and he wasn't going to let the storm take her now. The long night passed slowly, but Nita slept peacefully, and Daniel sat quietly, knowing that this unexpected meeting on a frozen plain would change both of their lives in ways he could not yet understand. Morning arrived slowly after the long, storm-filled night. When Nita finally opened her eyes, the first thing she felt was warmth. It wrapped around her like a gentle blanket, soft and steady, giving her comfort she hadn't felt since the journey began. The fire was still burning bright, and Daniel was still sitting in the same place, though his eyes looked tired. He had stayed awake the entire night to make sure she remained safe. She noticed how he checked the fire, then glanced at her, making sure she was all right before anything else. She tried sitting up, and this time her body responded, though with some stiffness. Daniel immediately rose from his stool and moved to her side. He didn't rush her or grab her, he simply offered a steady hand, letting her decide if she wanted the help. She accepted it, grateful for his gentle manner. "You're feeling a bit better?" he asked with a warm voice. Nita nodded. Yes. Warm now. Less pain. That's good, he said softly. But your hands will still take some time to heal fully. Don't use them too much today. He prepared a bowl of warm soup, made from vegetables he had stored for winter. Nita tried to hold the spoon, but her fingers were still sore. Without a word, Daniel moved closer and offered to help. She hesitated, unused to such kindness, but finally allowed him. He lifted the spoon carefully, making sure she didn't spill or feel embarrassed. She ate slowly, and with each sip, she felt strength returning to her body. Outside, the storm was still strong. Snow piled up against the cabin walls, and the wind whistled through the roof beams. It was clear they would be trapped inside for at least a day or two. Nita felt uneasy at first, worried that she was keeping him from his work. But Daniel reassured her that staying inside was the safest choice for both of them. As the hours passed, Nita began to talk more. Her voice was soft, but steady now. She told him how she had been traveling with a small group from her community, moving across the winter plains to reach safer ground. The storm had caught them unexpectedly, and in the chaos, she had lost sight of everyone. She had tried to find shelter, but the snow had covered every trail. She had walked until her legs weakened and her hands froze. Listening quietly, Daniel felt a deep respect for her courage. She had faced the storm alone, without warmth or protection. Many people would have given up long before reaching the fallen tree where he found her. But she had kept moving. That strength impressed him. Nita, in return, asked him about his life on the ranch. He told her about the land he cared for, the animals he raised, and the quiet seasons that came and went. He spoke with calm simplicity, but she could hear how much he loved the wide open plains, even when they were harsh and cold. She found comfort in his voice, in the steady way he explained things. She had met many people in her life, but few who spoke with such gentle patience. Throughout the day, Daniel kept busy. He repaired a broken part of the fireplace, cooked more food, and checked the windows to ensure the snow wasn't blocking them completely. Nita watched him move around the cabin. Even in simple tasks, he carried a sense of purpose. Every time he passed by her side, he asked quietly if she needed anything: water, more blankets, or help adjusting her hands. As the afternoon light dimmed, Nita felt strong enough to try standing. She pushed herself up gently, but the moment she put weight on her legs, pain shot through her feet. Daniel reacted quickly, catching her before she fell. He steadied her, his hands lightly supporting her arms. Though embarrassed, she appreciated that he didn't scold or lecture. Instead, he simply said, "Your body is still tired. Give it one more day. There's no need to rush." She sat back down, breathing slowly, feeling this mix of frustration and gratitude. She wasn't used to depending on someone else, yet Daniel made it feel natural, not like a burden. He respected her strength and never treated her like she was weak. That night was calmer. Daniel slept lightly near the fire, and Nita rested on the bed again, her body healing little by little. The storm began to fade, leaving the world outside, quiet and still. The sky cleared enough to reveal small stars through the frosted window. Nita fell asleep listening to the soft crackle of the fire, feeling safe in a place that wasn't her home but somehow carried warmth she trusted. On the third morning, sunlight finally broke through the clouds. The cabin was surrounded by deep snow, but the worst of the storm had passed. Daniel stepped outside to assess the land. His boots sank halfway into the white blanket, and each step made a soft, crunching sound. He checked the trail and saw that it would take at least another day for the snow to settle enough to travel. When he returned inside, he told Nita with a calm voice, "We'll wait one more day. After that, I can help you find your people." She nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She wanted to return to her group, but she also felt a surprising comfort here. Being in the cabin with Daniel made her feel safe in a way she hadn't expected. Throughout the day, she practiced walking inside the cabin, taking small steps while Daniel stayed close by, just in case she stumbled. She regained strength quickly, though her hands still felt sore when she used them too much. She insisted on helping with small chores, folding blankets, stirring soup, or handing Daniel tools. He let her do these tasks without stopping her, understanding that doing small things made her feel useful again. As they spent more time together, a quiet closeness grew between them. It wasn't spoken, but it was clear in the way they moved around each other, how they shared quiet moments by the fire, and how their conversations flowed more naturally now. There was no tension, no fear, only calm, understanding. That evening, Nita thanked Daniel again. She told him that few people would have followed footprints into a storm. Daniel shook his head, but she insisted with gentle firmness. She wanted him to know that his kindness would not be forgotten. Near the fire, she told him one last detail she hadn't shared before. When she collapsed near the tree, she had truly believed she would not wake again. Her strength had nearly run out, and the cold had become too strong. Seeing Daniel approach through the snow felt like a dream she wasn't sure was real. Waking up in warmth made her believe that maybe life had given her one more chance. Daniel listened quietly, feeling something shift inside him. He didn't say much, but the small nod he gave her showed that her words touched him deeply. The next morning, the sun was bright enough to melt the top layer of snow. Daniel saddled his horse and helped Nita climb up carefully. She was strong enough to sit on her own now, though he kept one hand steady at her side to make sure she didn't lose balance. They traveled slowly across the plains, following the landmarks she remembered. The land was quiet and peaceful after the storm. The wind was gentle now, carrying the scent of cold pine and clear air. As they rode, neither spoke much. The silence between them felt warm, not empty. Finally, from a ridge above the valley, Nita spotted signs of her people tracks, smoke, and movement in the distance. Relief washed over her, but unexpectedly, so did a soft sadness. She turned to Daniel with grateful eyes, thanking him again for saving her life, for giving her warmth, for giving her safety when she had no one else. Daniel gave her a small smile. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just stay safe." She promised she would, and she promised she would never forget his kindness. They parted gently, each carrying the memory of those days in the cabin, the storm, the warmth, the silence, the understanding they shared. Nita walked toward her people, strong again. Daniel rode back to his ranch, knowing that helping her had changed something in him, something he could not name but would always remember. Their paths separated, but the quiet bond formed in the heart of winter stayed with them both, like a warm fire in the middle of a cold storm.